Could we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands for the nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to outline a few rules for the meeting. First, please be sure that all electronic devices are silent. All attendees need to get recognition from the chairman before speaking. Only one person may speak at a time. Please wait for the chairman to recognize you before speaking. Interruptions, side conversations, or speaking out of turn are not permitted. The chairman has the authority to enforce these rules. Any attendee who violates these rules may be asked to leave the meeting at the discretion of the chairman. The chairman's decisions regarding speaking order, time limits, and enforcement of meeting rules are final. Respectful and courteous behavior is expected from all attendees. Please do not interrupt others while they are speaking. Any motions or decisions made during the meeting will be recorded for future reference. Again, welcome. The following is my president's report. 2024 is off to an exciting start. We are fortunate to have 6 qualified candidates for the 2 open board seats. These candidates have documented their experience and qualifications. Over the next couple of weeks, the elections team will be coordinating sessions where you will get to know more about each of these people in order to make your selection. As volunteers, we all have a shared interest of ensuring that our community remains safe, attractive, and functional. Please take time to select those who best represent your views and be sure to vote and return your ballot. Check the weekly happenings for more information. Everyone who joins the board usually has some objective in mind. My personal objectives are the well-being and financial health of our community. I am sure that you are pleased that our emergency fund has finally been restored. It is so important that POAs and HOAs have a reserve fund that some states require a reserve fund. Indiana at present does not. To safeguard these funds going forward, we will continue to report to you by each fund type at our public monthly board meetings. Being retired myself, I personally know that last year was difficult for residents with the $300 assessment, but the funds are required by our bylaws, and this gave us the ability to meet those requirements because I believe that it is the board's duty to follow our bylaws. The security of knowing we are prepared for an emergency expense was considered a wise investment by those who created this bylaw. By the way, that bylaw did have 2 readings in public some time ago, which gave you, the community, a voice in its creation. Guidelines are now in place to assure you that these amounts will be reported to you monthly. It is important to remember that this board was only formed in May of this past year. Prior to this board being formed, the emergency fund had been spent in spite of our bylaws. For this reason, you may be asked to vote on this in the future, and if you approve, it could be added to the Articles of Incorporation, which would require your vote to possibly remove it. As you know, we are under review by the Indiana State Attorney General. As part of our ongoing investigation, we met this afternoon with our forensic auditor, John Libbert, and also our lead auditor, Tom Bounds from Flynn and Company. Tom has done our annual audits for the past few years. Just for reference, these audits cost the POA approximately $25,000 each year. And they provide an annual report. Our forensic auditor has had several interviews with our auditor during his investigation. We anticipate a final forensic auditor report in the near future, possibly next week. His comments are that everything looks good. Many years ago, I initiated the 15% rule, which limits how much capital any board may spend in a given year without a community vote. The purpose was to give you more control over board spending. Basically, the rule requires your vote to spend more than 15% of the budget on discretionary expenses such as buildings, cars, or whatever. I was also responsible for writing the original operations manual, which is now in the bylaws and requires things such as getting competitive bids. Getting competitive bids used to not be in our bylaw. Also, we need to advertise any community property before we sell it. That wasn't in there before. I mean, those are just common sense things. None of these things had been required before that document was created. Also, a rule referred to as the first and second reading rule was created, not by me, but fully supported by me. As a matter of fact, tonight we may have the second reading for some bylaw changes. This rule was put into effect specifically to require the board or any committee to provide a first reading at an open board of directors meeting. We would then include this first reading in the minutes, which are made public the following week. We then require a second reading before it may become a rule. I am proud of the many hours of work that went into creating these bylaws and which still guides our actions. Concerning fiber, we are thrilled to announce that the 2-year-long project to bring underground fiber optics to every house in Hidden Valley is now virtually complete and available to any resident looking to improve their internet experience. The commitment of the two companies, SEI Fiber and Alta Fiber, exceeded $20 million, with our whole part only being support and communication. We know it has been frustrating for many residents with the disruptions, but with now more than 350 households receiving fiber optics, the testimonials have all been positive. And there may be a bonus. According to a study by the Fiber Broadband Association, adding fiber internet to one's residential property can boost its value by about 3%, which adds roughly $9,000 to a $300,000 home. David will discuss this in a little more detail, but Hidden Valley Golf Club is celebrating its 50-year anniversary this year. It's been estimated that over 10 million rounds of golf have been played on this course. We purchased the golf course in 2015, and it will be paid off in 5 years, thanks to the assessment of $7.50 per month or $90 per year per membership. This asset has increased in value and will continue to do so for years to come. This year, our garden club celebrates their 50th anniversary. I've been amazed at the beautiful work and dedication these people have always displayed for our community. They are truly outstanding. The current president and longtime volunteer, Lou Ann Roberts, invites you to follow the garden club activities each month in the Hidden Valley happenings. You can also follow along with events that the garden club has done over the years. In April, the garden club will have a special meeting serving tea to all who come. Everyone is invited and they have a special guest speaker. As always, everyone is invited to attend meetings and events sponsored by the club. It's a great way to cultivate a green thumb. Lastly, it is always important to recognize and appreciate the efforts of all of our volunteers who contribute their time and skills to serve on the HVL board, HVL committees, and clubs. Your dedication plays a crucial role in the success and functioning of our community. I truly want to acknowledge and honor their valuable contributions and recognize the role they all play in making a difference and achieving our collective goals. All of our employees, clubs, and committees contribute to what makes HVL so special, and the happenings is the best way to stay informed. And I might also throw out that if you have questions, don't hesitate to use the community forum. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the treasurer's report.
Cash on hand, 12/30/23 was $802,288, and cash on hand for January 31st, 24, $1,657,471. Operating funds, $956,183. Emergency funds are up to $427,482. Maintenance replacement is at $273,807. Future project capital right now is at $0. Capital expense for January was $852 for communications laptop. And then for the golf course, cash on hand for 12/30/23 was $76,939. Cash on hand for January 31st, 24, $163,250.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anyone have any questions?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Ralph Shaw, lot 1071. Some of you may know I'm on the finance committee, been on there since May or June of last year. And Bob, I was glad to hear you say as much as you did about the reserve funds and the meeting the requirements of the reserve funds. What I'm disappointed in, as we went through the budget process, I explained to the board twice that the reserve funds were not adequate according to the bylaws. They require 2 months of expenses, and that includes the entire POA. You can't just exclude the golf course. It was brought up to the board. The response from one board member was, well, we'll just ignore that. That's a quote. And I want to know, here we are. Now, keep in mind where we were a year ago. The previous board spent through the reserve fund. So it's possible. I was glad to hear her say we want to sequester that money. But when told that we're still not in compliance, for you to blow off that and acknowledge that I'm right, but not adjust that reserve fund is disappointing. I'd like to know why and when it'll be fixed.
Yeah, I really don't have a response to that, Ralph.
It was brought up in 2 budgets.
Yeah, but Ralph, I've had people tell me from a different point of view that this community did not vote to take on additional expenses of the golf course. So there's a difference in point of view from what was initially said and stated to the community. The community was told that if the golf course did not take care of itself, the board at that time would come back to the community for what to do in the future. So we hear you loud and clear.
I don't understand what's happening.
I didn't say that.
Oh, wow.
Did not say that. I never said.
We're in both of those meetings. They were both in meetings.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue. Everybody heard the statement. Everybody knows where they come
I
from.
sat through a Saturday meeting where we said we're going to go by the letter of the law. And then
Let's discuss that. Let's discuss it in a finance meeting.
I tried twice.
Okay, well, let's do it a third time. It took me more than once It took, it took me about 3 or 4 years. There's the 15% rule from a bylaw to the Articles of Incorporation. So if you feel strongly about that, I would bet there's some residents here that feel strongly the other way. So it needs to be discussed. It needs to be fleshed out. And I can't do that here tonight. We got to move on.
Okay.
Sorry. So everybody heard your point of view. Secretary report. Yes, sir.
Brian Muller, 201 Forest City Drive. I looked at your capital, I think it's the future project capital at zero. Does that mean you have 0 projects that have been approved for this entire year? I thought a budget was supposed to be put to the board or approved by the board back in November for anything that's going to be going on in 2024. And if I'm understanding that correctly, you don't have anything listed.
That's, yeah, Dave, can you answer anything about that, about the, the future project?
I don't think we have any planned projects that we are funding at this time. The focus this year has been on funding, getting these reserve funds up.
So there should be no money spent on anything valid for 2024. Is that correct? Is that right?
No, it's just saying there's nothing budgeted currently. Thank you for your question. Let's move on.
Sit down. Thank you.
Secretary's report.
Donald's not here, so I'll go on and make the motion to approve the December 2023 minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Community manager's report. David?
Good evening, everyone. Notes about our office. Over the winter, the maintenance crew repaired the entryway to the POA office, and they also raised the counter to make it more of conducive to that type of work, registrations, things like that. The entryway was especially concerning because the floor had some buckling. We had an engineer from the people who built this building inspect the issue over the holidays, and they guided us on the repairs. The engineer also confirmed a question that we had early last year regarding the fitness center, and that was it built to support the treadmills and other equipment? And he confirmed that it had been built with that in mind. We have 2 seats up for election, as Bob said earlier. Our part of that is the office staff is preparing the ballots and doing mailing, which must be done by the 3rd Monday in March. With the golf course, we had a few great days so far in February, looking for some really nice weather next week as well. This is the 50th anniversary of the golf course, and they have some activities they're planning to celebrate. Our POA maintenance team removed the wall separating the bar room area and the main area of the clubhouse to allow for more room during events such as the fish fries, outings, tournaments, other events. So I invite you to come by and take a look. If you haven't been there, we'll have fish fries again tomorrow. Some people got snowed out last week, but it's got a lot more of an open look to it now. Fiber optics, SEI, REMC will be hosting a fiber town hall meeting at the golf course on Saturday, March the 2nd, beginning at 9 a.m. They're close to finishing the initial installation, and their plan now is to focus on restoration and also connecting homeowners to their system. Under maintenance team, we will offer yard waste drop-off during the month of April this year. If you have a comment on how that's gone so far, I know Julie has kind of kept me up on her thoughts on that. Someone has a comment, let me know how it's working for you, if there's a better month, trying to hone that down. I think at this point, 2 times a year, it fits with what we can expect the amount of yard waste to be, and we can handle that. The maintenance team, has rebuilt the lake patrol dock, which is in very bad shape. I'm requesting to purchase a tractor, that has a side boom mower on it at the county auction. I have no idea how much the initial part of the auction would be. I've asked for $35,000 just to be, a high starting point. The equipment's in very good shape. It's built to trim road edges. We currently use a piece of equipment that is, like a pull behind, type of bush hog, and it's not holding up very well. We're constantly maintaining it. This will give us better, ability to mow the roadsides.
David, are you asking for a motion to,
Yeah, do you want me to do those, right now or at the end of?
either way, however you prefer?
Okay, yes, I'm requesting a motion to allow me, some latitude. And as I said, 35 is high. I think I can get it for less, but I have no idea until we get to the auction.
Dave, I got a question here. What kind of a piece of equipment are you planning on buying? Is it one of these John Deere tractors with an Alamo boom on it, or?
It's one of the county, from the county highway.
Well, and then the
One
only
that they're
reason I'm asking that is because we service all them from NDOT to ODOT and that around.
Yeah,
These machines are made to cut honeysuckle, and if you've got our maintenance team out there and they try to get on something that's bigger than an 8 or 10-inch log that they're gonna grind on, this is gonna be a machine that you're gonna run for 10 hours a day and maintenance 2 to 4 hours after that.
okay.
So if you wanna contact me indirectly when you're looking at this, I'd be more than happy on my behalf to look at what you're looking at first.
That would be great. It's my understanding that, that they'll be doing it a little different. I know the cities have been using a company in Aurora at the, Old Pandy's grocery store. It's an online auction type of a thing, and I know Aurora's done that with some of their equipment, so.
May we ask, is this a piece of equipment that you would recommend for development?
I don't know what we're looking to purchase yet, but a lot of the state, Casey Kennedy, lot 25, 23. But a lot of the states have went through what they call Normax now, and they got away from these John Deere, the Alamo side booms on them because they're high maintenance. It would be something to look at. If it's something a guy wants to purchase, and we can buy at an auction and say, hey, I'll take a day off to go to the auction and say, hey, this is what we need to look at, because this would be a fair offer on this piece of equipment versus buying something that we're going to spend a bunch of money.
Great.
That's a question.
Yes.
Sanders, lot 20 or 1070. Another question, Dave. Has any, like you're asking for, I would appreciate if we could maybe do that in new business, because I think there needs to be discussion about that. You just showed us that there's no.
You just stand up there having trouble here.
Oh, can you stand up there? You just showed us on the screen, there's no plan for any capital budget. Bylaw 2-3-7 is the community manager's responsibility to create a capital budget. How are you guys holding that responsible? There's no capital budget identified for this year. No capital budget been presented. How are we asking or going to jump right to a motion to authorize $35,000 of the POA community monies to buy a piece of equipment? Second question along with that is, who has done the study to show that the quality of that piece of equipment is in good shape, has a good maintenance history? And third item, who has done the comparison to show buying that for that much money versus buying something new is a good business practice?
Okay.
Can we answer those questions before we jump to a motion, please?
Yeah, the only answer I would give you there is recommended, by the county highways, supervisor. We're kind of following the lead of, people who are in the business who do this a lot. It's, he felt that it would be good for the comparatively small amount of roads that we have to deal with here with that, that kind of issue. You know, all of our roads don't have the maintenance issue. Most of them have a home there with a lawn and things like that. It's just some of these areas that we run into where we have either green space or an unoccupied lot. As I said, this is very high. I wasn't given kind of an idea of what they would be, even their minimum bid. But I wanted to be prepared at least to go back to our board and ask to purchase this while keeping public and keeping everything on the open, and having the latitude. My plan would not be to purchase this without the going back to the board and letting them know what I found out. As far as comparing with other equipment, I haven't done a comparison. This is a specialty piece of equipment. It's not something that you see in every tractor store even. So, I think there was a question back there.
Yeah. I'm not really a question, but so Casey, you know, you're pretty.
Name and lot number, please.
Our question. So Casey's a really good source. I was just gonna say that I've spent some time down in North Bend, right around the corner here. They just purchased one of those about a year ago, and they've got the history on it. They purchased it new. And I could give you the mayor's number if you want to talk to them and get like some of the newer prices and how they like the model they have. And I'm sure with him, they'll have some good information. Good idea.
There's somebody there has their hand up. I can't really see who.
Ryan Roberts, just a quick question, back to reference to the 15% rule that you had discussed earlier. Where would something like this in the $35,000 range fall on that 50%? Which number is that coming off of? Is it
coming off of the gross income for the year, which is, 2.8 million or something.
That pretty much settled this argument?
I'm sorry?
It's significantly below the 15%.
Well, actually, yeah, so actually in maintenance replacement, we have $273,000. That's where it would come from.
Okay.
I have a question. When is the auction?
I haven't been given that information yet. As I said, this is preliminary. Where the board has asked me to be to present any of these requests openly to the board meeting. So I'm presenting that, and I need the latitude in case this comes up and we have like 1 month of a period of time to get in on this auction, and I'd like to take advantage of the situation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ted Rickard, 1303. This would not be capital though?
Probably would be really.
Okay, so it's not coming out of the maintenance repair budget.
Is that in your budget?
Out of the capital reserve budget, 273,000.
This maintenance repair is really a capital budget? What am I missing?
If you saw up here on the, there was 273,000 in the capital reserve.
Yeah, I said maintenance replacement. That's not necessarily a capital reserve.
Replacement.
Yeah, it's a project capital.
Yeah.
It's in the 2024 budget.
I think
It's
tight on that.
we did not set up the reserve budget because we didn't have a reserve to. Because I don't know. Normally, what we would have is a reserve funding that would say, we're putting back so much a year for each of these categories. What we found last year that needed to be funded. So that's what last year was all about. So it is now funded to over $273,000. So that's what I'm asking for. As far as the capital, I'm not even sure what that one capital line was all about, but I'm assuming the zero capital line was for a proposed project such as a new maintenance or new marina shelter or something like that. We have no capital projects that I'm aware of. We were told not to have any aspiration for that. And we have this, we got this reserve fund.
Let me ask a question on that. So the 273 for maintenance replacement, that's approved and that money is in the 2024 budget?
So that's the capital reserve fund is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we actually listed it on the budget that way.
Does that say
You're calling it maintenance replacement. Maintenance.
My apologies, it says maintenance replacement,
Capital.
yeah, I'm learning the new terminology, it's my mistake. Thank you, have another question.
Yeah, we need to get that in.
Thank you.
Capital SBA.
Matt, you said 459. Have we looked at outsourcing it, Dave? I mean, is there, I get the idea of building a tractor at home, I don't have equipment myself. Have we looked at what the cost is for 2024 just to do all the maintenance that you want done with that machine? Outsourced to, a tree company, a landscape company, something can do it until the dollars can be appropriately put in the capital budget?
I have not, as I said, we've been doing this with a bush hog, one of those pull behind that you would have with a quad or something like that, that you buy at local hardware stores. I haven't looked at the cost of doing it. We have in the past rented a piece of equipment that would chew it up, if you will. That's pretty expensive. I think the last time we rented that, Fecon is what it's called. We rented it, it was like $8,000 for a month. I'm trying to avoid, going down that road. If I can get a piece of equipment that is used and still workable, we'd have our maintenance team look over the piece of equipment as well.
Just editorially, when I've turned around businesses that are struggling, and especially with cash, I've always tried to conserve CapEx expenditures for later dates and then outsource to spend the least amount of money in the shortest amount of time until the financial well-being of the organization can support capital expenditure.
Okay. Thank you.
One last question, possible. The bylaws state anything over $10,000 have to have a sealed bid. Like, how are you going to go through that to go past the bylaws at an auction? What's the process the board's recommending for that bylaw activity? I'm just
Good question.
curious.
I don't have an answer tonight, but in the past,
Can we give an answer?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so real quick, I think what the issue is that there probably needs to be reform on it. And what I think the POA is trying to do is kind of match a little bit more of the municipal codes around. And so cities generally, they have the complete carve out for auctions when they're purchasing items. Cities are allowed to buy on auction because that really is like the cheapest price and you can really get a steal at some of these auctions. And so it's kind of one of those, you're right, I think formality wise, we probably should augment that to allow for the auction without that 10,000, probably just an oversight and putting this together. But there's some like I said, as we move closer to some municipal rules of purchasing, you can't negate an opportunity to buy a cheap piece of equipment, right? I mean, if it's good for the valley, good for the citizens, and it doesn't hurt the paycheck or the pot, it's a good idea. So to your question, I think that this probably does need to be augmented to add an exception for an auction and probably to be closer to the municipal code in general, because that is a well-tested code that allows, municipalities to buy things and transact.
So I got a question. One last one thing. Would that be this food? Would that be under maintenance?
Oh, I'm sorry. So that's a great question, just so everyone understands. So why I even brought up municipal code, a lot of this stuff, we don't just create off the cuff. So there's been laws in effect for cities. When I say municipal, cities have plenty of purchasing rules and the like that, Hidden Valley, we're pretty much, I don't want to say we're a city. We're not a city. However, we have much of the same struggles and problems and issues as the city would. And when I say municipal code, they have time-tested laws that they have passed that are used by all major cities in Indiana. That is something that the POA, just for transparency issues and everything else, and also to get the best price for people buying in group like we are. We're a community that pulls our money to buy stuff for the community. It's just a good idea to look at what they have and to see how we can tailor it for our needs. So that's what I meant by municipal.
So you're not talking about just changing it so you can buy something at auction, you're talking about implementing multiple safeguards that the municipalities will have.
You absolutely. So changing the bylaws to make sure that we have a fair process and everything else like that. Like I said, we're our own government here. And as you go through it, governments look at other governments to see if those laws are working. If they are working, it's probably a good idea to adopt them or at least, do something with them. So I think that's kind of the future of Hidden Valley as we move forward, is kind of getting us into more of like I said, we're not a city, but some stuff in cities do work, and maybe that's something we should look at. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just for everyone's heads up, the reason we ask you to stand is the only microphone is on that table right in front. We would love to have microphones all the way through here, but we have to drop 5 to 10,000 to do that. That microphone works great if you stand up and project. Our biggest complaint is we hear the recording, but we can't understand people. So speak clearly, don't talk over people, don't mumble while other people are talking. So that's why we ask you to stand. So please, when you have the conversation, stand during the entire time.
Elaine Beavers, 471. So just for the record, so I understand, so presently though, our bylaws don't allow for auctions. Our bylaws require bids for anything over 10,000, and we haven't done any research as to whether we should buy or lease or outsource.
Yeah.
And there is no capital budget approved.
Actually, in last month's minutes, it's stated correctly, maintenance replacement capital.
That's a different account than capital expenditure. So.
It's the word was dropped when they created the agenda.
So, all right, I just wanted to clarify for the record, not that Mr. Evans, your idea may be very right and could benefit our community, but I'm just asking presently, none of those are permissible under our current bylaws, correct?
Under the bidding, I don't believe so.
I would have to double check that on the bylaw. It may say for contracts, the intent was that we control getting into contracts. I don't believe it says that for individual purchases, but I have to verify that. I don't recall. Yes, over here. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. You're in shop 1071. It sounds like you're under the gun here, right? That we don't know when the auction is.
Yeah.
And you want to get the equipment in 2 intersections? Is that all? That's a high dollar item.
There's also the lake treatment and the fireworks contract,
Which are more specific. I probably can't go necessarily get bids. Do you have time? And I've worked in government my whole entire life. And I get the auction thing, but all the crap that's been going on here and all the crap that people have been dealing with, and I've only been here less than 3 years. Do you have time, for the sake of transparency and for the sake of these people that are very worried about the bylaws not getting, and I don't know all those people, I just hear what they're saying. And I know, and it's not a reflection on you, Dave, but I've been there in the hot seat. I've been asked those questions. Do you have time to go get 3 quotes somewhere for a brand new or used somewhere else and get the warranty if there's a warranty and see, do you have time to do that before, and then not vote on it tonight? Maybe not on those 2 police cars, because we used to do that too. Or there's something called govdeals.com, which if we're gonna act like a city, we can try that. We can get a lot of good stuff there. But I get it. What if we get something that's a piece of crap and breaks down? Because we want to rush something through. I just wonder, do you have time to do that if they were to table it tonight?
I don't think I do for the auction. I don't think I do for the fireworks. I don't think
The fireworks is different.
for the
lake treatment, is there only certain people that can do that?
these cars were as I said, this is a different process than what we've done in the past.
I
The
understand.
board is trying to be open and transparent as requested.
I got it.
So, I mean, if it's not approved, it's not approved. We'll figure out another way. My thing is, we could go to the city stock. I was with the county for 32 years. We had all that. Yeah, you gotta take seal bid, you gotta do all this kind of stuff. It's expensive. You can't take advantage of deals when they come up. This deal with.
I'm not saying seal bid, I'm saying call up. We just did it. Somewhere else. I'm not gonna tell you where. You call a board. You call it, we need this kind of equipment. What's it gonna cost?
Right, and we have called about the cars.
Right.
The mowing thing, no, because it was an opportunity that came up. We know the people at the county highway. We know that they got new equipment. We know that part of it. Now I know that Casey is willing to take a look at the equipment for us, which is great, along with our maintenance team. So my thing is, I've always looked at it that we look for opportunities. And when those opportunities come up, just since I've been here, 10 years, with police cars, we've had probably 6 or 7 different opportunities that having, some will take advantage of, some not. Those were done because we've got our eye looking for them. We're not going in a bid process and looking for new vehicles or anything like that. We're looking for something came up, we got a good opportunity, we can take advantage of it. That's been the benefit of, and yes, this is going to take me a little time to get used to this. This is a totally different way of operating for me. It's a better way, it's a more open way. But do we really want to go to the sealed bid type processes and stuff like that? Because I don't think that's efficient. I think
I
that's.
understand that, but I still think you can get quotes that are just as every bit effective, and they would stand up in court on the law and pick the lowest from the best, and maybe it's not the lowest.
And I'm good with that, but I've looked trying to find pieces of equipment like this. We do some of that kind of thing, but they don't grow. I don't see these things.
But do we know what a brand spanking new one would cost?
Excuse me, Dave, we really need to move on. We
Okay.
already mentioned to you that the total of those things would be more than what we really wanted to spend anyway.
Okay.
So, let's just drop it and move on.
Okay. So, that's a no on this one?
Yes, sir.
So security vehicles will be a no as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what about the lake treatment company? Do I get a no on that, or is that that was something that we went through the lakes committee as we normally do? We had 3 bids. We chose the middle bid. Didn't think that the less bid was understood fully what they would experience here.
Hey, Bob, could I ask a procedural favor for the sake of the note?
Yes.
I'm not sure what to write for this one.
There was a lot of discussion. There was never a motion made, was there?
But there was no opportunity to make one either.
Yeah, so we never had a motion, so there was just discussion on it would be the.
Okay.
And
No motion is what I'm gonna.
right.
Yes.
And the point about the lake treatment actually is supposed to be read in an open meeting, so we're supposed to open the bids. So we didn't, that I know of, we didn't do that, did we, Dave?
No.
Okay.
And we haven't since I've been here.
Okay.
That's always gone through lakes and then reported at the meeting.
Okay.
What was it read at the lakes meeting? That's an open meeting.
Yes, but we didn't, they weren't sealed bids. I just got the 3 quotes.
Okay.
There are very few contractors that do that kind of work, I understand.
Yes, so
I got a great question.
Yes.
Hey, Jay, my understanding when we talked over the years, the company has been treating the lake, has been doing it for multiple years, right?
Yeah.
As we can all tell, the treatments over the last few years have been not as well as they've been in the past. Years ago, we used to treat the lake they could treat it in June, and I mean, when they treated it in July, it was pretty clear still. I mean, it was a minimal treatment at most. Word of the company has been treating it for the last 20 years or 25 years or however long we've had them match up with the bid that we're getting ready to get now, because what we've had at the last few years has been pretty shoddy. We got to make sure that the people that we're bringing in to treat the lake, that we're getting our money's worth, because I'm pretty sure that the way they've been treating the lake the last few years hasn't been the treatment we've gotten in years past.
I'm not sure about the years past. This particular company is Jones Fish. They purchased ATAC, which was the previous contractor. They have a whole new team, basically. They've been very responsive when we've had our treatments, and then we brought them back in to retreat in some areas, especially the first one last year.
Well, I just know that this is a major concern since with a lot of property owners there with the treatments that we've been getting. And we just want to make sure that if the valley is allocating this kind of money to make sure the lake is treated, and this is the face of the community, that we're getting what we're paying for. And I'm not talking us, I'm talking as property owners, that if we're going to spend the money that's allocated to treat the lake, that when everybody comes out to enjoy the lake, that it's taken care of, especially around the holidays, because sometimes around the holidays, when you start pushing that July treatment around 4th of July, it's been pretty nasty the last few years. So we just got to make sure that we're holding them accountable for treating the lake, and it's taking care of the growth that everybody's got. And I understand rain, and you can't dictate the rain, and when they treat, and it rains the following day, and it kind of dilutes stuff. We just need to make sure that the money we have allocated for that is taking care of the situation.
Yeah.
Sunny Wagner, 1136. Who is responsible for collecting the bids and leveling them? Is that the Lakes Committee or is that the POA staff?
That's me.
Okay, and then you give your recommendation to the Lakes Committee?
Not necessarily. I just present the information and who's what. I mean, it's kind of relatively simple.
Okay, so Bob said that we would need to rip and read the bids, I guess. Since we've already taken them, would it be something that we could issue the proposals and show the level bids so that the community can see transparently and vote on it at another time?
We could. I don't know if we have dates that we set up. Usually by this time, we've set those dates up, and we try to get in before the holidays. I don't know if they can guarantee those dates. We'll do whatever we have to do.
How much? I was offering that as an alternative to not doing anything.
Yeah.
Since we didn't.
How much money are we talking about?
This includes the golf course and all the lakes. It's $29,515. What the overall is. All the golf course lakes are main lake and the small lakes. Most of that is it's only $2,000 for the golf course.
Yeah, with that, we do need to get the bids and open them in an open meeting. And that can be a special meeting. That does not have to be the next board meeting.
So then just to clarify, the bylaws do say they have to be with a committee member. It's in an open meeting with the appropriate committee heads.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so everybody cool on that? The dam recently found that one of the instruments for measuring the dam activity has been removed from a post at the top of the dam. And there are 5 such instruments at various locations on the dam, and they're very important to the monitoring and safety of the integrity of the dam. So we please would ask you that if you see anyone tampering with these instruments, you let us know. And if you see them damaged or poorly attached, let us know that as well. The company's supposed to be reattaching this one, and and reattaching the other ones more securely. While I was investigating this issue, I noticed there are several lines in the area that look suspicious. I reported these to our dam inspector. He came the next day and inspected them with me personally. At first glance, he believes there are some type of a burrowing animal. We've contacted someone to inspect and potentially remove the burrowing animals. And we are to continue to monitor this area daily to see if there are any changes. Those changes indicate slippage, then we have to contact the state and we, of course, our dam inspector. If there are no significant changes, then he will give us the opportunity to repair these in-house. So I guess the final thing is the fireworks, and we're saying we have to bid those out as well. How much is it? 15,000.
With the, and right now is the only contribution we have is Savista.
The only firm.
Okay. So there was discussion about another, did Steve come through?
SCI fiber.
Oh, SCI, but is that a firm commitment?
We haven't made a proposal yet. Okay.
They're not firm until we clarify the 501c3. If it's not that they wouldn't, it's just how they would do it.
What's the total cost again?
15,000.
So with the 5,000 from Savista, that brings it down to $10,000. So it's marginal. So do you guys want to have fireworks this year, or do we want to take a chance? Which you would do, take a chance or what? Yes.
1604 Julie Hughes. I was just, I brought it up at the future planning meeting about getting other contributions from other companies or people in the community that own businesses. I would think that a business in the community, even if they gave $100, would be happy to have their name on our little signs all over the place. Why would we put it out on listserv if you own a company and you'd like to just bring the cost down?
Good suggestion.
Yeah, put up 1,000, now we're at 9,000, let's pass.
Yeah, we don't.
Mr. Dan is there.
Let's talk about more figures. Just who do I need to call? Talk to you.
Yeah.
Contact me. I'll give my email. We'll make a contribution.
Excellent. So if that's the case, if that's a firm commitment, then we're below the $10,000 threshold. So I would say somebody needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion. Is there any more discussion about the fireworks? Anybody else, anybody not want to have fireworks?
Tonight or on 14th?
All in favor? Okay, that's fair. Thank you all. Brian, Rob, Matt, how did you vote? Hey, Donna, how did you vote? Thanks, Ryan. Okay, Donna votes for the fireworks. Okay, next on the agenda is judicial. Mr.
Hello, everybody. I am Richard Paul. I'm currently the chair of the judicial panel. And still alive. About 3 weeks ago. We talked to the sheriff's deputies.
Right.
We have received a letter from Kyle Packer that was questioning some of the interactions between Jeff Buell and Bob asked me what I consider, since the judicial panel tends to be isolated and pretty well open, to reporting on what's been going on. And which way to go with that, it would be sort of a recusal of the board and putting me there to see what I could see. And what I'd like to do is give a short report on what's going on. I love Hidden Valley. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love being. And we have so many wonderful volunteers that keep the place running. I mean, a lot of them are in this room right now. So I don't have anything that I'm getting out of this, but I'm hoping what we'll get out of this is something important for the valley. We need a functional board. We need to make sure that things are transparent, and we need to get as many people involved as we can. Okay, so we had a note sent around to all the committee chairs, and it was questioning, you got it, questioning the late council meeting. And that was about the time when the Lake Committee sent out a, it was a survey. And I think your wife did a spectacular job, huh? Every community, every boat owner, every non-boat owner, and it was a very, very thorough operation. So they sent them something to me that looked like something you vote on. They asked you to take a vote on this, but that was just for them and to see what the survey was doing. So there was some confusion between Jeff and Kyle on was there a meeting and was there a vote? And I could see how that could get messed up because I voted on it thinking I was voting for something. Actually, I consider that kind of moot right now because a week later, last week, Thursday, the Lakes Committee voted on that particular wake surfing or wake plowing, whatever, we can't do anything with it more. There was a vote and that's gone. So fighting over whether there was a vote or there wasn't a vote doesn't make much sense. The other thing I found out, well, let me back up a little bit. I had both of these people, Jeff and Kyle, and we had a very polite hour conversation at my house. And I put that together, and I'll tell you, we'll be sent out what that summary was. But right now, the next thing that happened over the course of that, because there were some requests for changing the board, and it turns out that in our bylaws of the POA, and I think it goes back to the formation of the, what do you call those laws that were the incorporation? Articles of incorporation. Articles of incorporation. I always forget about that. But the idea, it's written in there that the board cannot fire anybody on the board. And there's some question about whether we want that changed or not. And we would have to look into it and find out if somebody on the board was stealing, for example. I guess we would have to turn that over to Dearborn County, but we couldn't do anything as a committee to do that. So what I wanted to ask the board to do is table that particular discussion. Take your time to figure out what's needed if we want to change some of those rules and figure out how to get it done. I don't think worrying about what the board can't do right now in today, or what is the end of the conversation about this guy saying, she said this, or there was a vote, or there wasn't a vote. I would just like to put that all down and ask for that as my recommendation is to table this investigation, quote unquote, that I've been doing for the last 4 weeks.
Okay, thank you. We will plan to table this.
I will give to the board, well, you have it already. I already sent and we have the individuals who have responded to that. And if you want to bring that in for, not the wild meeting, I'm sorry.
Casey Kennedy, 2543. I have a question for you. I'd like to thank you for your service to the Judiciary Board and all the good work you do. But did Kyle Packer's opinion versus the vote in the survey affect him being able to run for the board? That was my question to the board and the Judiciary Committee.
As well as my understanding, and we can ask the board, one of the rules are you have to be an owner of property in the valley to run for an elected position on the board. It turns out, again, I'm not the lawyer here, but it turns out that all of Kyle's property are in a trust and his wife owns the trust. Which means technically that he can't run. That may change when they decide that rule. I mean, you guys.
And I've got a question here myself because I'm a business owner and I own a substantial amount of properties and this and that are got a net worth to them. But the older that we all get, when you're trying to look at your next step in life, it's in your best interest to trust some of the things to your kid or to an estate than it is to leave it left where something happens to you, than where everybody gets the carpet pulled out from under their feet. My other thing about this is that if he signs a check that comes to the POA office, or I sign a check that comes to the POA office, they don't have a problem taking it to the bank to cash it. But when I'm looking at it 10 years down the road, I might like to run for the board. And if I run for the board and I got myself in an estate trying to protect my family, after being a property owner here then, it'll be 35 plus years, I've kind of locked myself where I don't have no opinion.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and answer it?
Yeah.
Okay, so just real quick about estate planning in general.
Hey, Jared, would you answer that, please?
I was asking about.
I want to hear just what.
Absolutely. Sure. So here's the deal. You can do estate planning where you don't ace yourself out. And I think one of the problems with some of our bylaws is we don't really give clarity on some of these other juridical persons. And what I mean by that is it straight up says in our AOIs that companies can be members. We don't have any rule. We just say person. Person isn't a well-defined term. We don't really have any rules about what you do for a corporation. How do you get, does the corporation can't be on the board?
No.
But there should be some rule that a corporation should be allowed to be represented in this kind of freehold election system that we do, right? So trust, excuse me.
Is it safe to say the wife would have been allowed? I mean, is that?
Oh,
One discussion at a time, please.
Yes.
The wife would have been allowed.
Right.
One at a time, please.
Ryan, she wasn't running, Ryan was, or that Kyle was. Right.
Yeah, I heard the question. Yes, if you wanted, I think the decision would be different because the name, the way our bylaw states is that the name is listed on the deed as a grantee. Excuse me, you know, guys, this is, go ahead, Casey. So to your question about estate planning, the issue is this, is that there are ways to do estate planning where you don't ace yourself out of title to the property, even in a trust. And I think the issue is this, is that our rules and bylaws need to be clarified to handle weird, situations like that. So you can do your estate planning while still be able to run for the board and have control. So,
and we're investigating how to do that right now. One of the things that we're looking at is to change it to where it still says that, but it says maybe, for example, you have to be a full-time resident. But that's in the Articles of Incorporation. We don't change the Articles of Incorporation, you do.
Well, about
So,
that.
so we need to find a way to resolve that, but then we have to come back to the community to vote to change the Articles of Incorporation. And when we do that, that's a process, and we would like to incorporate any other changes that we want to do. Are you guys still happy with the 15% rule? Somebody asked me, how much is 15%? You know, it's almost a $3 million budget that we have. So that's a lot of money, 15% of 3 million. Do you want it to be less? Those are the kind of things that we really need to know before we start looking at the Articles of Incorporation. There's a number of issues that need to be worked on. I see 3 hands up. Which one is for Moller was up first, I believe.
So my home is in the trust of Brian and Shannon Moeller.
Okay.
Okay, the deed says Brian and Shannon Moeller. If I had the trust in the Acme Trust and the deed said Brian and Shannon Moeller, number one, are you guys doing a due diligence and finding out who the deed is to, or are you just looking at what it's listed as? Are you looking at it saying, oh, it's the Acme Trust, you don't own it? And then disqualifying. And then also, if it's listed as Brian and Shannon Moeller, somebody's got it first, right? Would my wife is ineligible because she's not listed first on the deed?
The bylaw doesn't say that.
So is this the problem with Kyle?
No. No, so
there was due diligence done.
There's
In addition, when.
You got 3 questions. Let me answer one, and then I'll address them all in sequence, okay? So I believe your first question, I'm gonna restate it just so I can hear it clearly, that you stated, what would happen if the trust, if we only looked at Beacon or something like that?
Did not have my name in it involved at all.
So the answer to that question is no, deeds were pulled. An investigation was done as to whether or not that was the full name, because you got it. Trust, sometimes Beacon will cut it off, or the auditor will cut off the name. And so the next issue is the trust name itself. The trust name itself is not important. What is important is who is the trustee in charge of the property. Therefore, the trustee has the power. So you could actually have Mr. Moeller Trust, Jared Eubank as trustee, right? And that fact, I, as the trustee, would have power and control over the property, and that would be my duty to do it. Now, the next issue, I think, is looking forward to this, is that these are not defined. Our bylaws do not define a trust, do not define a law, and by God, that's something that needs to be fixed. So the issue is that you're asking questions that haven't truly been addressed until Mr. Packer was kind of a first glance occasion where we have a trustee. What do we do in that circumstance? The deed was looked at, all the deeds were pulled, pulled about 4 deeds back just to see the change of title. So that was looked at. I think that the issue, of course, is that we just need to expound upon our laws. So do you have a follow-up question to that, what I presented?
So you did look back into four subsequent changes of his deed, and none of them had his name on it.
No, that's not true. In 2018, it got passed.
The current deed.
The current deed did not.
And then, lastly, I guess I would state that, the person who's named first on that is the only eligible person.
That's incorrect.
No.
The AOI's got changed in 2019. Now, anybody listed on the deed may run. However, you only get 1 vote per property. So it's basically you get 1 membership vote per lot you own. Right.
And then lastly, when does that name have to be on the deed?
So what the board, their interpretation was, is that deed needs to be on prior to you signing up to run for the board, or prior to the cutoff date if you needed to change it.
Well,
So
once again, that's not in written.
It's
That's just up to interpretation.
well, and that's fine. The board gets to interpret their laws. I mean, that's one of the things that the board does, is that it goes, hey, this doesn't make sense. We have a weird situation, and what do you do? And so you're right. I think what is illuminated here is that our bylaws do need tweaking, and they'll need tweaking for the next 50 years. We'll constantly be changing these. The goal is, of course, is not to make if you ever look at Title 36, which is the municipal code, it's 2.5 books large. I mean, it's a giant volume. We're hoping not to get to that phase, that we're so complicated. But as the community gets bigger, as challenges are faced, you know, we're just like any other voting community or republic. Laws will be expounded upon, definitions will be given, there's exceptions to every rule. And the issue is that just like America, just like any country, as we go through the history, things will need to be augmented to meet the times where we sit currently. I hope that answered.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted to go back to this gentleman's presentation because it was a little foggy to me.
Can you stand up so they can hear you?
Sure, yeah. Just want to go back to this gentleman's presentation. It was a little unclear to me. But I hope to summarize, maybe you can tell if I'm missing something. So you were asked to mediate between an allegation that Kyle Packer made against Jeff Buell, that Jeff Buell lied to the board of directors about the results of the Legs Committee vote, that many of us were in the room when the vote occurred, and that you're finding, and that subsequently Kyle Packer asked Jeff Buell not be the liaison to the finance committee because he cannot be trusted. And then your finding was it was a misunderstanding?
I can answer the liaison is something that can be shifted and in fact is in the process of being changed. So you will get a new liaison for that committee.
And then any disciplinary action towards Jeff would be up to the board, but our current bylaws don't allow for Jeff to be removed. And so then that would just need to come under review further.
Well, you'd have to interpret that as to what that originally said, and the board has, and it said they're not going to interfere with another board member until they rewrite that, and that's why I'm saying you should try to get that done.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear on what was being said.
A lot will come out in the letter that I wrote in response to the return comments from the two people involved in it. And like I said, they're both great people. They both are working. Without him would be less. And it affects the rest of the volunteers. I can't imagine being on the board and taking crap all the time when you're working hard and not getting paid. I want to sit down. Then you can.
Go ahead.
1070, sorry, quick clarification with you banks. You showed a couple of things where I want to make sure I understood.
Sure.
You referenced the 2019 bylaws?
No, AOIs, Articles of Incorporation.
Okay, so the 2022 bylaws clearly state that it's the first person on the deed, not the second person on the deed.
And
Bylaw by definition,
I'll pull it up. I don't know.
I thought that was changed.
Already listed on the HDL.
I've got the bylaws up. What
2022 version that are posted online. So is there a more up-to-date version? Of
which one?
What was
HDLA Field Community Bylaw 2022?
No. What
1.2.2i. And also you said, I just want to protect you because these are documented minutes. You also stated that the definition of person is not clear. We have in our bylaws a definition of person related to how it references in the PO.
Okay, well, you're laughing about it, but I'm going to tell you this right now. What do you do with a corporation? You have somebody that's paying dues that is not allowed to affiliate. My issue is this: is that when you get in, well, I hear you, but you've made a statement that basically you made a statement that you want to protect the record that I'm saying something untrue. No. And so what I'm going to say here real quick is that when you get into corporations and trusts, you must define it closely, because the issue is either we make a rule saying that only natural people can run, or we're saying persons as juridical persons. And so I think it needs to be cleared up, regardless of what the other bylaw defines person as. I think that needs to be changed too, then, to make sure we're clear that we understand how we're going to handle that situation. And so the next one you brought up, 1-2-1, part I. So I'm getting there right now. So if you're a person, in any event, our person thing is, it says any property owner. So that's a corporation.
POA member, I.
Yeah.
First party listed on an HDL property deed.
Yeah.
You said it could be anybody in that household. It's not.
Yeah, I don't see that. I have a POA member, the first party, okay, I see what you're saying. The first party listed on an HVL property deed. So I'm gonna tell you this right now, that is repugnant to our AOIs. If you have an AOI and a bylaw, the AOI's control. This is of course an incorrect, whoever wrote it, I didn't think I did, but I probably had something to do with it, probably let it go and missed it. I mean, that's all I can say. It's an incorrect definition. So AOIs trump everything, just for the record.
Are the
So,
AOIs public? Just my-
they're more than just public, they're at the Secretary of State.
Okay, so we can get them.
You can get them all, and if you want them, I'll email them to you. So we got, just a little history on our AOIs. We've redone them several times. First version 72, 73, we redid them 76, 86, and then 2019 was our last edition, so.
And they are on the website with the bylaws. Yes, sir.
Roger, here's about lot 1067. Somebody asked earlier about, the vote, about Kyle being allowed to run to the board. And they said that it wasn't affected. The vote didn't affect this, he was not allowed to run to the board, is that correct?
I don't understand your question. Could you repeat it?
Well, they said Kyle, somebody asked earlier, they said, was Kyle, the decision to prevent Kyle from running to the board affected by this accusation with dishonesty?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Did Jeff Field vote on that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, he did. But
How
you
did
know,
that
well,
be biased?
how was it not biased? Because he actually voted to allow him on the board.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
And there's 5 or 6 witnesses. Okay, yeah, so architecture. Tom, are you?
Forgot why I'm here.
Yeah, let's make a motion. Wait a second.
Hold it, just 1 minute. I need to make a motion for.
Motion to table, Mr.
Oh, okay, yeah, so we do need to have a motion to table the discussion that, from our judicial panel. Do we have such a motion? To table the discussion? I'll second. Okay, you'll abstain. Any discussion about that? All in favor? Aye. Donna, did I just hear you say aye? Okay, yes, so Donna's an aye. Okay, now, Tom.
Good evening, Tom Cross, 1573-4, representing the architecture meeting this evening. To the board, we have 6 bond returns. I'll read them all and let you vote on them all at once as opposed to individually. All right, the first is lot slide 57. Owned by Megan and Eric Oatman, located at 1383 Skyview Circle. The bond amount is $500. There are no owed dues, fines, or fees outstanding. That would be the same for all of these, to keep repeating this each time. Second would be lot 2689, 2690, and 2685. Phil Mether, bond amount $500. That's located at 20512 Alpine Drive. Moving on, lot 2366, Jeff, it's an Meiller. I don't want to butcher this. I'm assuming it's Miller. Property located at 1525 Gulfview Court, bond amount $500. Lot 1395, Denise and David Martin, property address is 651 Windermere Hill, bond amount $500. Lot 373, 374, and 375. Owners Rob Lowe, located at 938 Rustic Drive, bond amount $500. Finally, lot 428, Ward Colson, owner, property address is 1102 Woodland Circle, bond amount is $500.
Do we have a motion to?
I'll do it first.
I'll second it. Any discussion on the return of any of these bond funds? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Donna? Donna's an aye also.
All right, lastly, the architect committee would ask the board to, consider a 10-foot variance for, Carrie and Allison Zakor. They're lot 1138, they're located at 20323 Mearsham Way. That variance would be for the, construction of a garage.
Okay, some board member has before we open for discussion, though, we need to have a motion to open it for discussion.
I will motion to open it for discussion.
I'll second that motion. Okay. And I personally visited the site this morning with Tom Cross and with Dan Suster. So I'm kind of familiar myself. Tom, could you describe the situation with the garage?
I'll do my best. It's located up on Mearsham Way, and it is a lakefront property, steeply sloping from the front road to the lake, as most of those properties along that section of Mearsham Way do. There is no other area to place the garage. That would be the only place place one, excuse me. The Zakors have gone through the process for variance. They presented the board with plans. They paid the $50 fee for variance. Letters at that point were sent out to adjoining neighbors, and a sign was posted in the front yard of the property. The neighbors were given 30 days to respond to those letters. The letters explained what the variance request was. We had no negative responses from the adjoining neighbors. The 30 days elapsed, and it was discussed among the members of the architecture board, and it was unanimous to request the board to allow that variance.
And I guess the house sets pretty far back from the road, which
Well,
allows the garage to set in front and still have 30 feet of space.
Well, all homes here in the valley have a setback of 40 feet from the front.
But this, if they're going to put a garage in front, still at 30 feet, the house must be set back a little further.
I don't know the exact measurement, Bob, but we know that it's at least 40 feet. That's the requirement here.
Okay. And this is very similar to the one that was approved 2 doors away.
Well, I think it's 4 doors, but yes, there was another home there on Mearsham Way. The same kind of situation with topography, needed a garage, and the variance was requested and approved, yes. And the garage is built.
I believe there was an email this morning talking about, or I think I first seen it this morning, talking about landscaping and parking pads.
Mm-hmm.
Is somebody here that, okay,
Sunny Wagner, 1136. Can I see the plans for the proposed structure? The reason why I'm asking is because the garage 2 doors down that Bob just mentioned, it has no windows, no landscaping, and it has a gravel pad that is larger than what's allowed in the bylaws. So I was really just wanting to know what the state of the gravel is in front of the house, and that the structure is going to be approved, and its facade that faces the street will match the house.
Let me break that down a little bit. First of all, the parking pad that's in front of the property is a parking pad that's shared by 2 residents. The Zakors and their a neighbor directly to the right if you're on the road looking down at the homes. That parking pad, I believe, was measured and it's in compliance. There are some parking pads along Mearsham Way that are not compliant with our current code. Now, that being said, the current code was not put into our bylaws until 2016, and quite a few of those parking pads along Mearsham Way date prior to that bylaw, so they would be grandfathered. As far as landscaping, I'll give you a second, I'll get to you. As far as your landscaping question, our bylaws also state that any residence that is built must have landscaping equal to or greater than 1% of the home's value. That does not address a building for storage, such as a shed, or in this case, a garage, which would be considered in the same way. So as far as landscaping, I don't know that we have any guidelines or bylaws that have to follow it.
Okay, so what is the state of the parking, the gravel path then?
What do you mean, where does it say?
Like, will it remain in its spot?
I'm Allison Zicker, 1148. I'm the neighbor. The parking pad wasn't even part of the, they didn't even say, I absolutely hate it. So John and I, the neighbor, Shaggy, we're going to get that fixed after my garage was built, because I just made a garage. I'm going down the stairs and up the stairs every day. Yeah. So no, landscaping will happen. I care about my garage. My house is just a plain rectangle, and I designed that house down the street that I own a lot of. That was not just right. So I do want my garage at least to be show some style. Yeah.
I apologize, I had to bring it up. I asked for these on February 6th. I had just seen it for the first time. So if I
Well, because they actually talked to me about it during the meeting, and I said, I don't know, I mean, someone told me that someone was asking, but I said, well, I don't know who the neighbor is, but I'd show anybody, you know, because I definitely will make it look better than it is. Okay.
Yeah, any other questions for me?
No, I think she covered it with the parking path.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for me before I sit back down? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom. So we have a motion on the table for a variance. And I'm only going to vote in case of a tie. So how does everyone vote? Everyone that either an aye was motion made and seconded.
I think the motion you made is to open up the issue.
For
discussion.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Okay. So we have a motion. Any other discussion about this variance? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Donna? Okay, so Donna is going to, because she hasn't been able to see the plans or anything, so she is not voting. So the motion passes 3 to
2 abstentions.
Yeah, 2 abstains.
Who else abstaining? Okay, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay, so moving on, we have Finance Committee report, Kyle.
So let's do official business first. So we have a motion to approve, and this is not November, so I'm gonna go over this after. So we're have a motion to approve the November financial statements, which were approved at the committee level. And just for a little education, the reason we're so far behind is we don't approve December until the audit is complete, and the audit won't be completed until March. And then we approve January and February once the audit's complete, because there could be assessments that happen in December that roll into January. So it's about as far as we can get this time. So there's a request to approve the November.
I'll motion to do that.
I'll second it. Any discussion about the, all in favor? I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Okay. We need to make sure that our document, back to Alicia is clear that it's for November and not for January.
And it's for the golf course as well.
Yeah, because it's all the same package. Correct.
Same motion, I still motion to approve.
Okay, very good.
Ken, do you still second?
Yes. Okay, all who approve?
Aye.
So that motion passes. Donna approved also.
Okay, and then there's nothing to act to. This is just information. We're trying to present this every month. Sometimes I do it, sometimes Ralph does it. So you can see, not a lot to see. You've got January of the month. We show 23-24 revenue and really against budget. I think there's value in showing 23 and 24. You can kind of see where things are shifting, but
you know, obviously we had a dues increase for 24. So the budget is obviously a lot different than 23. And then it's really hard to create a lot of variances with expenses. So for example, let me give you an example, maintenance, no, that's not right. Where is? So like, one of the things you gotta be aware of, like in January, is we would buy salt, but we might have a budget for 2 months of January and February. We might only buy it in January, it might be 0 in February. So again, it's hard with a one month to give you much delta. So expenses are a tad bit over budget, about 12 for the month of January, and I will tell you that's because they purchased salt in January, and I don't think they're planning to purchase it in February. So, questions? Oh, and I got a question. Go ahead.
Hey, since things are fundamentally sound with the golf course now, would you think about moving to the golf course or going for the board again?
Say again.
I said, since things are fundamentally sound at the golf course, will you consider buying a home on the golf course and running for the board again since things ain't working out with the lady?
I'm gonna put it in a trust. Other questions? I do want to clarify something. There was no approved capital budget for 24. When we approved the budget for 24, we approved the operating budget. There is no capital budget that's been approved yet. There are dollars that can be allocated to it, but there's no formal full capital plan yet for 24 that's been approved. Correct, Ralph? That's correct. So just for clarification. Anything else? Go ahead. All right. So I want to clear up one thing. I want to talk about since everybody understands my estate planning now. That's great. So one of my arguments, and Jared and I have gone around this, is my house is held in a trust, and my wife might be the trustee, but you still don't know who the true owner of that property is unless you see the trust document. And we have other recent board members who hold their houses in a trust. And they have trustees, and they've been on the board, and they've been appointed.
We are not going to litigate that tonight, that we're not gonna do it.
That's great. I'm sorry, I'll continue to do. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, well, I got one thing I'd like to add.
Sure.
The Donna said at that hearing, precedence is important. The precedence has been the people holding their property in trust that ran.
Okay.
So why all of a sudden the bylaws are gonna be by the law? And we were things tonight where you violated bylaws.
I am sorry.
But we only use the bylaws to keep Kyle from.
I am sorry. I don't have any idea what you're talking about with other people. I wasn't on that board. I became on the board in May.
Your board member said precedence is important.
That's great. Good.
And we can factually show you where precedence has been.
I'm sorry about that. We're not going to, we are not going to relitigate it tonight. I'm sorry about that.
Litigating. You listen to what these.
No, I was at that hearing. There was no listening on that hearing. We had 2 people that came in, not ready to listen. They came into that meeting defending the no vote.
Can we write in votes? Can we write in votes? Can Karen Shaw, can we write in votes? Can we write in votes? Why?
Because you have bylaws.
Because you have bylaws. But yet you don't apply them across the board. We don't do it about capital, we don't do it about operating, and then I see people sitting around going, let's shut up, let's stop talking about it.
Well, they're ballot
That's
concerns.
why we're in the problem.
You're absolutely correct. There should be, the laws should be written. We should follow the rules written. If the rules do not work for the situation. No, excuse me, you got a chance to yell at me and point and throw do that. Let me talk. So the issue is, if the rules do not work, right, they don't fit the situation, this board creates a rule that works. And I think we're in that time that we've had major review of the bylaws. I think a major rewrite of the bylaws is in order. I think everybody agrees with that. And I think the issue is that the people here demand from the board that they follow the laws written. And I think that's
standing and you guys keep saying no. Why can't Kyle tell you that people have been serving on this board and have the exact same thing? Because somebody didn't check it. But yet you guys won't let him run because he was 2 days late for getting his name put on a property.
Be aware the vote was 2-2. All right, it was. I know you don't like that. It was a very.
That's not what I'm talking about. I don't understand why it even had to go to a vote. I don't understand that.
because there's a deadline. Do you just ignore everything? I mean, you know, you guys didn't want us to put capital out for a tractor that he might get for $5,000. You didn't want to
Don't
take that.
say we didn't want, right there, stood right there, told you guys, you guys didn't do your job.
I'm
So
sorry.
don't say we didn't want you to.
Okay, you're right. We didn't do our job. We're moving on.
Well, we want y'all more, that's what we want.
Okay, we got your message loud and clear.
A minute, please.
Yeah.
Please, your document, please get that in there.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, Pat.
Pat Hawkins, 679, 680. I don't know what board people you are referring to, sir, but I can tell you that in my time on the board, we appointed 2 people, and that meant they did not go through the normal vetting, which is the office checking and the elections committee checking. 2 of those people, Mr. Gabbard back here and Dave Haefner, both had their properties in trust. However, their names, Dave Haefner, Doug Gabbard, appeared on the deed. That was the difference.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, future planning.
I'm sorry, George, as I mentioned, I have to switch to the Zoom meeting at 8:45, and I really would like to listen to a few minutes of the lakes thing, because I know that's going to be exciting.
Oh,
Could we switch the order on that, perhaps?
do you mind, George? Okay.
Thank you, George.
We will come back. So, you're prepared.
Evening, everybody. Thanks for everybody's input. I'm here to, report on the February 13th, 2024 Lakes Committee meeting. My name is Jill Bidner, and I am at lot 1897. As far as the Lakes Committee meeting, there were 2 resignations from the committees last month. One of those was Jim Barnum for health reasons. However, Jen has graciously agreed to continue doing the lake statistics reports. The other resignation is Eric Fox, who was chairing and has served on the committee for a very long time. So we want to publicly say that we really appreciate their service. They both have done a great job. The first order of business was to get leadership in place. And well, we put it out in email and everything to the committee and to see if anybody would step up in the interim. So myself and Ted Gumperly agreed to be interim co-chair. The motion was made, voted on, and accepted to be unanimous. John Button was voted in as secretary to take minutes and prepare the minutes for the committee. And all that was voted on, and everybody accepted that unanimously. So here I stand, graciously to talk about the lakes. The second order of business was the highway rule that has been deemed to be too vague for Lake Patrol to enforce. Finally, after over 3 years on and off of discussion and working with the Lake Patrol to help define highways, we decided that we would clarify the current rule, and the committee put forth a proposal that the committee thinks not only clarify the current rule, but will also, with education and training, make it easy for Lake Patrol to enforce. it should be noted, this is clarification, and it is not addressing anything new. This was voted on and approved to be sent to the board for consideration. The committee recommends that this, be put to the, entire community for a vote, and the vote was 5 in favor and 1 opposed. So, board members, would you like to make a motion regarding this clarification?
I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Shouldn't we open it up, make a motion so that we can discuss it?
Make a motion to consider, have a separate.
Yes.
Consider the issues.
So Donna Yetzer makes a motion to do what, Donna? To discuss, okay? Open it for discussion. And do we have a second?
I will second the discussion.
Okay.
What are we discussing?
So,
I don't understand.
It's, Bob, it's just, if we could just say this, Dave.
What is it?
Motion to approve the lake committee's
discussion.
recommendation.
Okay, so we have a motion to discuss your recommendation, so please proceed.
Okay. Does everybody has a copy of the proposal in your hand, correct? As well as, it's up on the screen. We'd like to read it word by word. We also have, who else is on, the latest committee that is here? Button. Okay. So I might refer to him for some assistance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pat Hawkins, you have a question.
I do, and I think I'm still at lot 679, 680, so that's my husband doing something on here. But before we start the discussion, I just want everybody to know that this is how the system works. What was posted on Facebook is a recommended rule coming out of the Lakes Committee. Without being too crude, a committee can propose any backcrack crazy thing they want. And it goes to the board and it gets a reading tonight, and you are encouraged to give your input on this rule. And they take your feedback, and if it's substantive enough that the bylaw has to be totally rewritten, it goes back again for a second first reading because it's substantially different than what was first put forward. So it's not a fait accompli, it's not a rule. It is here for you to give your input on. And in my opinion, high wakes has been a poison for the last 3 years. It is a bubbling undercurrent of so many things that are happening in the valley now. So I am happy finally to see something come before the board for discussion. Because if you'll remember, we had a task force that presented their recommendation to Lakes. Lakes rejected it. A group of Lakes members came up with another. The entire Lakes Committee rejected that too. So nothing ever came before the board for a reading and any action. I am glad that we have reached that point, that it is coming before the board, but please do not assume that any of this is a done deal. You're here to provide your input and get it. Okay? Yes.
Is nobody, they're not supposed to be input on the committee level anymore? Or what's the point of having committees if we're just gonna roll up to the board?
Understand that a committee is free to accept or reject whatever input it gets. Now, when I was chairing the board, the first question I would always ask is, how did your members vote? What came before you that isn't in here? And so I think that is a fair question to ask. I don't know what the board is going to do with it. I am going to have nothing to do now. So just give your input, be respectful. It's not a done deal. It's people that are just trying to address. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
Excuse me, this is only one portion of the new rewrite, correct? Isn't there 2 additional?
You should have.
Well, not everybody has those.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
please provide that.
Bob, remind everybody's name and lot. Yes, one at a time. Yes, like Ken said, please stand and when you're recognized, don't speak until you're recognized, but please stand and state your lot number.
And I do have about 15 or 16 extra copies. Okay, one more. Thanks. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Jill, do you want to take some questions?
Of course.
Are there, is there, okay, I'm gonna, oh, okay, go ahead, Ken.
I got a question for you, Jill. You mentioned this is a clarification of the current rule that was deemed unenforceable because of the language that Lake Control has enforced. Now, there's been a lot of talk on Facebook that the rule is gonna ban skiing, tubing, wakeboarding. Can we assure the community that that's not the intent of the rule and that's not what is gonna happen?
Our community, I mean, we have never said that those things would not be allowed. So that is not that.
Okay, it clarifies that it is banning the installed boat devices in boat operation, which both of those things are in the current rule. So there's no rewrite on there. This is a clarification for enforcement purposes. There's no intent to, there's been questions about people are concerned they won't be able to teach their kids to ski or they won't be able to pull their children on tubes. That's not what the intent or what this law will do. All right, neither one of those things are going to happen. They're simply trying to stop the massive wakes, which are safety hazards in Lakes Committee's opinion, can do damage on the lake, the dock, boats, and the people.
And the dam.
And the dam. That's also in the consideration because the high speed zone is very close to the dam. They say, you know, why don't people take the task force recommendations of limited days and hours? I believe it wasn't done because that doesn't change the fact that the wakes aren't safe out there anytime. So if they're not safe, why would they be permitted partial times? Either they're bad for the lake or they're not. And it's been deemed that they're not good for the lake. And the survey kind of pointed that out. It was kind of, the high wave was overwhelmingly not wanted by the survey participants. And that's why the rule was looked at by the Lakes Committee. They brought what we thought is a enforceable rule by the Lakes Committee to the board. That's what they're bringing to us. So those are just some things that I wanted to check with you on, if that is the intent. You're not trying to ban tubing, water skiing, any of that.
Our intent pretty clearly is safety and maintaining the integrity of the lake and all lakes. Simple as that. I mean, we looked and thought through as far as, you know, compromises, grandfathering in, and it just boils down to the integrity of our lake. If something happened to the dam, we wouldn't have our neighborhood. Anyhow, I mean, that's exaggerating, maybe.
Well, I've seen Facebook chatter where people are saying Lakes Committee got this rule, this new rule shoved down their throats. The board force fed this to you guys. I mean, I've read it, but if you read Facebook, you've read it. What's your opinion on that? Who wrote this? Who wrote the law, the line?
We actually started with we researched many other community lakes. And, you know, I don't know how much I can express that we researched and looked into, talked to people, so, I mean, it's just the integrity and the safety of people in the community.
This gentleman back here has a question.
Thank you, Jill.
Duck cover lot 1083. We have 9 grandkids, youngest being 5. Okay, so what speed is a boat planing at? I'm talking specifically about plowing.
I can't answer that.
Okay, it does depend on the boat.
Correct.
We've owned 3 boats since we've lived in the valley, an outboard, an IO, and an inboard. Now our inboard's an 896. It's made for slalom, so it's made to minimize the wake as much as possible, okay, at any speed. Our 5-year-old granddaughter will not be traveling at 20 miles an hour where a boat planes at. And that's across the board very close to that speed. So it's $100 to $500 fine if I'm pulling my granddaughter less than 20 miles an hour. My boat really doesn't plow anyway. So you see where I'm at. I can't take, you're saying, no, it's not going to allow you not to teach your grandkids to ski. But the first skis they start on are these really short skis, the rope's tied to the skis. There's somebody on the back holding onto the rope because when they fall, you gotta let go of the rope. And so there's somebody in the back of the boat, which is objectionable, okay, but they're there for the granddaughter. We've got 9 of them, so we've gone through this process. This is the 9th one, you know. We also have what's called a ZUP board. It's like a big board the kids play on. It's got a hook. The handle can be hooked onto it, or you can hang onto the handle. You travel anywhere from, you know, idle up to maximum of 20 miles an hour. So they can't use the ZUP board anymore. You know, when we take the, well, if I have to be on plane, I'm talking about plowing.
I'll second that. I'll go to second.
I can't get all back. See, the rule,
one at a time.
The rule says you're expected to go from an idle to on plane within a very short period of time, 20 seconds. And so if I cruising down the lake at 10 to 15 miles an hour with a 5-year-old behind my boat, I'm not on plane. That's $100 to $500 fine.
Do you have any of those other devices on your boat that create ocean-like waves?
Right. My boat doesn't have that.
Okay. So
like this.
those are all.
My boat sits fairly flat all the time. When we had an outboard, I would literally sit up on top of the seat, to be able to see to the front. But your rule is not defining the wake, it's defining your speed.
Part of it.
The operation.
Well, it's very clear in there that says you guys must go from an idle to plane, which is basically 20 miles an hour for most boats. The other thing is you have a lot of pontoon boats that have 10 horsepower motor. They can't get on plane. That's not enough horsepower to get it up on plane. What are you going to do with them going idle? You're going to say you have to idle all the time. Okay, you're still defining planing. That's what I'm talking about. Plowing. And the rules right there. Boats will refrain from plowing for more than 20 seconds. Okay, and I'm defining planing as most boats being 20 miles an hour. I don't think that rule is going to work.
Mr. Levitt, by plowing, they're talking like, you know, you're familiar when a boat's plowing, take it off, it's like this, the front is.
This is right.
That's what they're talking about. When you continually do this.
So there's a definition on your sheet as well.
Right, but I'm going by what planing is, and even my boat, it sits pretty flat the whole time, but it's, when it gets up on plane, that's a different wake. You know, under 20 miles an hour, it's going to create a larger wake. You know.
Are you creating ocean-like? And are you using devices?
I totally understand what you're saying. I'm just saying this part of the rule is not going to work.
Okay, sir, we've heard you 3 times.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Name and lot number. Dave Jeffcoat, 1677. Jill, if I could have the podium for about 5 minutes. I led the highway task force, and I want to summarize for the community what we did do, and would like to give a 5-minute summary of that.
No. We will give. Okay.
This was never presented to the community, it was presented to the finance committee, and today, I would like to show what we did.
Okay.
How far we got back, I met Ken and John, and we had good compromise discussions.
Okay, we will give you the 5 minutes, but if there's somebody that also wants to speak and say the same thing, we can't give everybody 5 minutes. But if somebody wants to counter what you say, that person gets 5 minutes.
Bob, the Highway Task Force was presented back-to-back months to Lakes Committee, and it was turned down. We cannot do anything about approving it now or what happens. If he's got questions, they have questions for Jill, fine. This isn't the time or place to be presenting task force.
You take it to the Lakes Committee, it was turned down.
It was rejected. Hold on, it was rejected twice by Lakes Committee.
Yeah, you've got 5 minutes.
You know, we want to hear what he has to say.
Donna, do you want to keep the time for us?
My kids, I bet, because my wife is not available tonight, but I'm listening. I would be.
Yes, starting now.
Thank you.
5 minutes starting now.
Hello, as I said, I'm Dave Jeffcoat, 1677. I've lived on the lake about 10 years, our lake right across from the beach, so I get to view all the fun we have out here all the time. And my wife and I have been here 10 years and thoroughly love the lake and want to continue to enjoy it. I want to address some of the concerns I've got with the proposed language myself and make sure the community is aware of what we did and didn't do in the highway task force. We had 10 members on the task force that were all volunteers. I was selected by the lake's chairperson. 7 of us were lakefront property owners. And I'll say I went into this with no firm opinion about where I was leaning, but I was probably leaning toward not allowing. But as I got to know some of the wake surfers, and particularly people like Bill Hoyt, I said, we probably need to find a way to get a balanced solution to allow for responsible operation of this activity. So the task force operated for about 5 months in early 2021, with our mission statement to clarify the intention of the current rule. I believe the approach that we took was consistent with the bylaws that wanted to provide for safety, comfort, convenience, and enjoyment of the residents. Our task force recommendation was basically 3 points. To limit the times where wake surfing was allowed, not allowed from noon to 6 on weekends and holidays from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Reduce the area where wake surfing is allowed in the high-speed zone, basically from the dam to about Moeller Park. And to operate the boats more toward the center area of the lake, at least 200 feet away from shore. The current buoys are 150 away from shore, so 50 feet in toward the center of the lake from beaches. That is consistent with what has been put in place to specifically address wake surfing at most of our sister lakes where they have put something in place. I've got some stats on the that's just some candid thoughts of what we saw. I know the original intent of this language was probably not to allow the features, designs, and operations associated with wake surfing. I'll say execution over the years has not accomplished that intent. The rule has not been enforced with that purpose. And I'll say at the time, 2019 registrations, 7% of the powered boats registered on the lake were designed to provide for this enhanced wake. There was 36 boats at the time, and I know that number has gotten bigger since then. As I said, our recommendation puts some reasonable bounds of allowing wake surfing to improve the safety and mitigation of those concerns. It's consistent with actions at our other sister lakes. What are those? There are 5 lakes that have specific language relative to wake surfing that are very consistent with that, generally further away from the shore and restrictive times. Two of those lakes, Santee and Lorelei, have the same 20-foot limit that we have on boats. Some of the others have 23, which has a much higher weight. And that's the studies that you read are mostly with those 23-foot boats. So the 20-foot boat helps to minimize the impact associated with the waves that those can create. As we said, the recommendation was not approved in 2 sessions of the Lake Committee. And I've got copies of those presentations and a sign-up sheet I'll pass around if you want to get electronic copies of those. We did have further discussions with parties. John and Ken and I got to have beers at Willie's and try to hash this out. And we were really, I think there was a willingness to compromise somewhere along these lines. If we could put some bounds around the allowable ballast, that we were never able to reach an agreement on that. And we kind of gave up at that point. I'll say it effectively died in committee. And at that time, the Lake Patrol thought they would be able to continue to enforce the current rules. That obviously has changed the opinion right now. While we may not have gotten everything right with the task force, I think we provided a sound recommendation and a basis for going forward for a compromise solution. I believe it's in this board's and community's best interest to work for a balanced solution and not tell Bill Boyd he can't wake surf that. I don't want to ban an activity that provides for the enjoyment of a number of residents, both young and old, has been permitted for years here, like it or not, and can be conducted in a safe manner. It's been demonstrated by other communities around here. So as I said earlier, I live across from the beach. Thank you.
No, it's not. It's been 4 minutes, 29 seconds.
Yeah.
I would ask for the board to reject this ban. Let's go back and find a balanced solution, because I think it has been accomplished in other communities, and there's no reason we shouldn't be able to make it for your time. Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone want to say anything? Yes, sir. Name and lot number, sir.
Joe Hospital, lot 2000.
I have no idea what you said.
They just out there to ban it?
Okay. Okay, so that's, yeah. We really don't need to, keep reiterating it, I don't think.
I think we do,
Matt?
because you're not willing to listen.
We are listening, we're here.
Matt Houston, lot 459 and 460. I just want to make everyone in the room aware that this morning I sent the only peer-reviewed study in the entire country on this topic by the Journal of Water Resource Protection from 2022. We attached it. The study is clear that if a wake surf boat is operated 200 feet from the shore and at least 10 feet of water, the impact is minimal. We also sent an additional study that showed, this one was not peer-reviewed, but it did show that generating sport wake passing 110 feet from the shore would have to occur every 101 seconds around the clock in order to equal the energy coming from waves associated with a typical storm. That being said, if we ban wake surfing in light of the fact this board has peer-reviewed scientific study, not Lake Committee bias, peer-reviewed scientific study, then it's unnecessary, arbitrary, capricious, and it's a willful breach of your fiduciary duty.
Peer review, Ken. I just got a question for you.
May or may not have an answer.
All right. I'm looking at the peer-reviewed study you sent. It says, it was prepared by Goody and Gerald, CA Goodry and Associates in Massachusetts, prepared for the Water Sports Industry Association.
Correct.
So they, I just
peer reviewed. That means scientific clear. Just say no.
Sir, I just want to know. I just want to know who ordered the study. That's all.
Peer review.
Okay, answer question there. Okay, guys. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Okay, guys. Okay, John.
John Dutton, lot 1854 and 55. I am on the Lakes Committee. I did help write this, I've done endless research. That same study that you mentioned, Matt, I have a copy of, and it talks about, and one of the things that you point out is we have a deep lake, so that makes a difference. It says right here, wake surfing in deep water is the exception. It takes 300 feet for the wave height to drop half. So it's 300 feet, not 200 feet. Just because of a deep lake. This is from Gowdy. This is from that study, because you say that a lot of times. The other two peer reviewed have at least 500 feet to 900 feet from shore. So it's a safety issue. It protects every one of the studies, even the one done by the water sports industry, talk about safety, increased property damage, and environmental impact. That should be the main concern of the residents. I'm sure it's fun, but it's what's best for the majority, for the lake, for the environmental impact, knocking someone off their dock, kids at the beach, the dam. You know, when you talk about the compromise, we did take that into consideration. I think you're self-acknowledging that it is an issue when you limit yourself when you can do it. I think you're self-acknowledging that there's an issue. If you use,
We're trying to
if you give the 200, which it should be 300 for deep lake, the buoys are 150. You move them in by another 50 feet, you give up another 100 foot of that high speed zone. It's congested anyway out there. Our lake is just too small. There is not another lake. I know you want to say sister lakes, but they're 100 acres or more larger than Hidden Valley. Our lake is just too small.
Okay, so we've had a lot of discussion. It's been going on for at least 12 minutes. Okay.
All right, this needs, you please don't rush this. There's a lot of people that have a lot of different.
Name a lot.
Excuse me?
Name a lot.
Same room, not 1070. So I keep hearing just comments about safety, erosion, all these items, ocean-sized waves. Does the board have any actual registered, documented, like, safety issues that you can present? Like, I've been to some of the lakes communities and I hear everybody talk about safety. Everything I hear though is a safety opinion of a person on it. Where, like, does the board have something they can send out of registered safety issues? Actual safety issues. Not just something that somebody's hearsay or I called some actual registered safety issues.
Is there anyone here that would want to answer that question?
You think you'd have a name?
Wait a second. Let me answer that.
I will.
Do I have them how? Written or verbal? I've had plenty of verbal comments. There's at least two people sitting right here in this room that don't want to speak up, but have come to me with complaints.
Yeah, I mean, so if I start complaining about the drinking and the improper use of pontoon boats, we're gonna ban pontoon boats?
I'm not saying I'm gonna ban them. I'm not saying, I'm sitting here, you know, I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth, before a few months ago, I never heard the word wake surfing. I'm not a lake person. I'm not a boating person. And I plan to.
Then why are you willing to die on Ken Hort's sword?
Well, hey, I'm not. You gotta move on, guys. Yeah. We spent 20 minutes.
So all these people here, that's why.
Okay. I've listened to them. I understand.
Just like you got everything else tonight, you just shut everybody down.
There's nothing more to say.
I mean, what do you think we're gonna do here tonight? I mean, we gotta move on to whatever's gonna happen next week.
The people's opinions on this, and you're only getting biased input. You need to understand how big survey.
I do understand. You know, I've probably got 25, 30 letters from all you folks. You know, I've read them and I've answered most of you. I told you Merry Christmas, we will listen, and we did. But okay, so why didn't you guys, I mean, you know, the Lakes Committee has come with a proposal, and I'm not gonna argue with you.
A lot of this has been argued, that goes back to that judicial thing there.
All right.
These people didn't allow any comment during the Lakes Committee, once they got Eric Fox and Dave Patterson out there, they ran their own show, and now they're running through Penn Warren up the board.
We're not, that's
right.
You know what? No, come on, right? Okay, guys, I'm sorry, no more arguing about it, please.
We're not arguing.
No,
Minimum speed of 20 miles an hour on this thing.
We've got a motion, we have a motion on the table.
No, you don't. Discuss.
And we open it for discussion, and now we're going to move on.
Jeff, why do you feel so strongly about this? Why are you guys, what are they doing? Just listen. Just listen. What's it hurting you? Listen.
We have, we've been listening for the last 20 minutes, but we've been here for over 2 hours. We've been here for over 2 hours. Yeah.
So, step down, let somebody else take the position. All right, wants to do the time.
Okay. Okay, okay, Matt, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I just want everybody to have a chance to feel like they got to express.
Okay, the gentleman next to you, did you get to finish saying what you wanted to say? Who else? This gentleman in the back. You, did you want to say something else? Yes, you.
Yeah, with this.
Name and lot number, please.
There's gonna be a minimum speed of 20 miles an hour.
Name and lot number, please.
Yeah, 1067. But that, the way this rule is written, because the Lakes Committee had these votes that nobody knew about and voted their first thing in the last meeting, so nobody can discuss it. So we can run it up to the board. And now.
The Lakes Committee says that wasn't true. Ken, please, let him finish.
Now we're saying we're not gonna enforce that, because that one, we know that you're plowing because you're carrying a kid around and stuff. So you're exchanging one ambiguous law for another ambiguous law. Everyone would have to go a minimum of 20 miles an hour to plane their boat on this lake. So now everybody's going fast. Is that safer?
Can I comment real quick? There was a 12-minute discussion before a vote. At the last meeting. John Button, 1854. There was a 12-minute discussion before a vote. So that is total mis. I recorded the whole.
John, please.
79680. Pat Hawkins, can I make a suggestion? This is such a big issue to so many people in the community. I think the confines of a board meeting are difficult to adequately address it. Why don't you schedule a town hall meeting? And before that meeting, make the highway task force recommendation available online to any resident who chooses to read it. Let the people on lakes who are against this rule change present whatever objective data they have, and have a meeting dedicated strictly to this, and let people speak their piece, and then decide where you want to take it from here.
Okay, so, we have a suggestion from from Pat Hawkins. Is there a motion to accept her suggestion?
Well, first off, we could schedule a town hall. People want to present information between the readings, but we're here tonight to have a first reading on the bylaw that Blake sent us. At this time, I want to make a motion to vote on that first reading. Does anyone want to second that?
The community rejects.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to second this motion to vote on the first reading for the bylaw change?
Donna, did you hear that? Donna seconds the motion.
All right.
Can you put it on speaker so we can hear? I didn't hear. I want to hear already.
Donna, they didn't hear your second.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, Bob, I'm popping up again, and I apologize for not being recognized, but I'm hearing rumblings in the back of the room. The fact that this is accepted as a first reading is a good thing for you, because what happens is that the text of this goes out to the community in the minutes. It is a way of educating the community as to what has been proposed. So you don't want to set this aside and have them not approve this for discussion, because it's now part of the record, okay?
Thank you.
Can I ask one quick question?
There's a motion on, wait a second, we've got a motion on the floor and a second, so we have to
It's
address
about
that
motion.
first.
It says in your agenda that it's a motion to approve bylaw changes late. The other ones say first reading, second reading, whatever. Is it a first reading? Or is it, what doesn't say it in the agenda?
Well, that's what it is, it's a first reading of that bylaw.
Well, your other one says first reading of bylaw, motion to approve safety and security. This one didn't, I just wanted to clarify.
It's definitely a first reading. Can we vote? Yes. So, Donna, how do you vote on the motion? Do you understand the motion?
No, please repeat.
Could you repeat the motion? It's a motion to vote on the Lakes Committee of the post first reading. Yeah, for the first reading. Donna votes yes. I vote yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 3-1 recluse. Gives me. On Zoom. I don't know, is Grant on Zoom yet?
Grant said he was listening.
3 to 5.
He said he was, yeah, I'd like you to, can you confirm I'm not muted in the Zoom case? Let's see.
Just so he's on the record.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna unmute you here in a second, Grant. Hold on. Can you unmute? Can you hear? Can you talk, Grant?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay,
we're-
perfect. You want my vote?
Yeah, on the proposal on the first reading of the bylaw change.
Yeah, I vote no on this particular bylaw change at this time.
Grant, I'll leave you unmuted because you're not echoing. Donna echoes when you unmute her, so I'll leave him unmuted.
Oh, okay,
So-
yeah.
So
I'll
when you talk,
self-mute. If I can.
yeah,
if I can
self-mute
control
if you're
it, I'll
right.
self-mute.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion passed 3-1.
3-1.
Yeah,
One abstention.
3-1. Okay,
That's it.
yeah, so,
Is there gonna be a motion for the town hall meeting, like, Pat Hawkins suggested?
yeah, do we have a motion for a town hall meeting?
I'll make a motion for a town hall meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in
For a
favor?
second reading,
Oh, yes.
Yes,
no reading until we have a meeting, right?
the meeting will be properly scheduled if we choose.
Before the second reading of the rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
I vote no.
Donna, you vote no for, I don't understand.
Town hall. I don't vote for a town hall.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Donna's not voting to have a town hall.
Listen, we had both motions, we had a motion and a second, and I don't think we did a vote yet.
You know, I don't know who made a.
Ken, did you make the motion?
No, Ray did.
Second.
Yes, I made a motion for the town hall.
Jeff second.
And call for it.
And I second.
So go ahead and call for it.
Okay, so, we need a vote to have a town hall. Donna votes no, is that correct, Donna?
Correct.
Okay. Ken?
Yeah.
I vote no. Okay, I want to be true to you all, you know, you already accused me of being the devil. Grant, how do you vote on the town hall?
I vote yes, have the town hall.
Okay. All right. And I vote yes on having a town hall also in order to break the tie.
Can I,
talk about one other
Yeah.
item from the Lakes Committee.
Yes.
So, everybody is welcome. Please listen to this. Since we had 2 resignations from the Lakes Committee, it was discussed what process, this was at our last meeting, what process we would use to promote and how many members to move forward with on the Lakes Committee. We now have 8. It was determined that 9 seemed sufficient, but could be reviewed and changed if needed. That was voted on and approved. The process to fill the vacancy would be the same as used in the past, which we would place a notice in the echoes on the listserv and word of mouth. I've been telling all the dog walkers that there's going to be a position open, and please consider it. So please pass the word around. After attending a few meetings, if that person has an interest in becoming a member, there is a questionnaire to be filled out with a request for information such as how long have you been a resident of Hidden Valley, where do you live, what are your interests, do you have any related experience with the lakes, what kind of expertise do you have to offer, and bring to the committee. After completion, those will be reviewed by the committee members. Candidates that appear to fit will then be interviewed by the committee. Then a vote to add or not. So I beg you, I have been on this Lakes Committee doing great things since about 2008. I would be happy. 10 9 are interim chair. I mean, we have begged people to be committed to the lakes and do a good job and believe in the integrity of our lakes and the safety of our community. So thank you for listening. Please come to the Lakes meeting on a regular basis if you're truly interested, and then follow the process.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
I have a question about the process. If the Lakes Committee votes on which new Lakes Committee members can, how will we avoid groupthink and make sure that there's dissenting, opinions on the Lakes Committee so that everybody's fairly represented? I do believe there have been a few people try to get on the Lakes Committee that weren't, pontoon fishermen type people, and they've had a difficult time getting on the committee. So
since 2008.
Okay.
Eric as well. I mean, we all agree. We've been on it way too long. We need to have a turnover.
People rejected it in the last 2 years.
Pardon me?
No, we haven't rejected any.
The positions are now newly open. So the process will begin.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Is Amy Ayers here?
Yes.
Where are you? Hey, wow. George got that. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot we skipped over you earlier.
I'll make this short. I respectfully decline to give a report, except for one thing. Please remember that a week from Saturday at 2 o'clock, there is a town hall meeting to discuss anything you want to discuss about fiber optics. If that's a golf club, 9 o'clock, I've heard that somebody's gonna pay for coffee and rolls. So, please consider coming if you have any questions or any suggestions about fiber optic installation.
What was the date?
It's a week from Saturday, it's March 2nd, at 9 o'clock at the golf club. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Amy, my apologies. My apologies.
Another slide. There we go. We're at the second reading. I'd like to get the board approval for our bylaws. I will say this,
Ours are just taking out things like no towel service. The main thing we did add, I didn't want to, but, no diving and swimming off of the dock at the beach. It's dangerous, there's boulders full of algae, kids can't get back up. People that are on boats dropping people off, they're not looking for kids in the water. It's dangerous. Other than that, I do need the approval for that, and then I have one more thing.
Yeah, and I didn't understand, you need the approval for.
Second reading on our bylaw changes.
Okay, so do we
We
have,
started this last.
do we have a motion for the, approve the second reading? I'll motion that.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. The proposed bylaw changes were not in here because they were a whole bunch of pages. I forget how many pages I was told.
For me,
They put this QR code in instead.
Right,
You can
correct,
go and look at the
correct.
code.
Here is, I mean, I kind of missed it.
It's a hard.
It's right here. You got a question?
Yeah.
For me?
No, just a general question, process related, again, Chamber, is the process for this, do they actually have to be read here? I mean, it's a reading, so do they have to be read?
This is a second reading.
Second reading, I'm asking the process, do they?
Right,
the board,
well, here was the thing for,
do they have to be read in a second reading, or they just have to be posted?
They have to be
Like,
presented to you.
clarify.
You have to have that.
So it's a great question, and so the issue is this, of course, when they say second reading, there's some rules and laws, if you look like the IRS code or whatever, and anything like that, they do read it by title and then discuss the different options with it. But sometimes you can spend 2 days reading. So it can be presented by title only, and that is considered a reading and a discussion of the law. So I'm trying to pull it up myself, so.
Here's a copy of it, and actually you've got.
You approved it.
Well, I'm good. I'm not that good. I can remember it, so thank you. So it must be wonderful.
Well, I mean, I'd like.
Yeah, I did it. I approved it back in October.
Right, right.
Yeah, let's.
Well, we've had a couple months off.
So I don't know, has anybody got any questions or anything about it?
I have one question. Did anything change from the first reading?
Pat, you would know that.
Pat knows that, and yes, there was a couple little things. It was price on renting the building. We took that out because obviously that's gonna change. It's not gonna stay the same. And then what was the other one?
We took out echoes.
Oh, yeah.
The old bylaw said that the swimming times would be announced by the pool manager in echoes in advance of the swimming season.
Right.
And we took that out because obviously echoes
Right.
no longer exist. So we put in appropriate language. It would be announced before the start of the swim season.
So Grant, the only two things that changed were those two omissions.
Okay.
So do we have a vote to accept the bylaws for Parks and Recreation? I'll motion. We have a second? Yeah, seconds. Any other questions, comments? Okay, a vote, Ken? Yes.
Aye.
Jeff, yes. Donna? I think I lost one. How about Grant? Grant?
Yes. Yes.
Donna, are you there?
I lost you.
Yeah, I did. So we just had a motion and a second to accept the Parks and Rec.
I heard that. I'll go, yes.
Okay. So that's 4 members, 4.
We're good?
Yes.
We're good.
This is Grant.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
I did not.
All right.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. One more thing, we haven't had baseball here for a while. We have it now for the little guys. We're starting out small. We need The cutoff date, I believe, is March 1st, but I'm sure if anybody wants a late sign up, they'll take them. So, if you know of anybody that might want to play baseball for Hidden Valley, send them our way. Up to 8. 4 to 8. I think he's got a right. It's just the little guys. The what?
Deadline is March 15th.
Oh, I thought it was the 1st. So we extended that. My mistake. That's good. All right, that's it for me. I'm hungry. Let's go.
Thank you, Amy.
As you can tell.
Jenny, do you have a,
Just one thing,
okay,
as Bob mentioned earlier, there are 6 candidates running this year. If you have questions you want to submit to those candidates, excuse me, the start date of submitting is, March 15th. The last date you can submit is the 28th of March. Thank you.
okay, safety, security, Dave. Bob, there's a hand up in the back of that. Yes.
Driver out of 29, 29. Not for nothing, but I stand up tonight.
He can't hear it.
Not for nothing, but tonight, I think was a good example of how quickly, the process can get bottlenecked when we confuse transparency for process. And, you know, the way that things actually operate with the board, committees, et cetera. So I commend you guys for making the extra effort to be more transparent, but I would say it's quite a slippery slope between being transparent and allowing the community to override the things that we put the board and the committee in place to do, the decisions they're making. The worst thing that can happen is we've got a community that keeps operating in a certain way that is now doing a complete 180. And 6 months from now, we don't have fireworks. 6 months from now, we don't have all these things that we've taken for granted that decisions have to be made behind the scenes. And that's where the 15% comes into play, right? That's where, you know, these other areas or items in place are there in order to keep things flowing. To allow the community to focus just on, we should have far more time to discuss the hottest topic in the room. So we spent 45 minutes talking about traffic, right? That probably falls within that 15% parameter. And it's true, the $10,000 thing, you have to arrange it, but I think the point here is, let's not get bottlenecked down and completely shut down our operations as a community just because we get over concerned about things we may or may not actually care about on an individual level. Throwing that out there.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, and we will certainly consider them. But it's a long discussion. There's much to discuss in what you just said. So moving on, back to Dave, please.
Real quick. So since Halloween, I think we've had maybe one board meeting. We did review the Halloween street closures in committee, got feedback on that, overwhelmingly positive. There were maybe a couple of naysayers for that, but it seemed to be an overwhelming success. So that would probably be something that we would discuss considering in the future. Cold weather and ice safety. So this was brought to our attention from a couple different viewpoints, liability being one. And before I've been here, I guess there was signage that had been put out to keep off the ice, which of course, you know, Lakes has a bylaw, obviously, to allow people that want to skate or, you know, ice sports or ice fishing, and, you know, we don't want to infringe upon that, but, you know, just possibly posting something to, you know, be aware of the ice conditions and, you know, at your own risk type of signage we're still discussing it, so it's nothing that we're presenting for any decision right now. Same thing with the beach. We've had a number of different discussions. I know Parks and Rec has expressed some interest in increased lighting at different locations. So, you know, that is something that we took into consideration with the beach as far as safety, security concerns, obviously after dark. And so we talked about exploring the possibility of installing some LED lights, maybe, you know, motion detected, things like that, so that, you know, there would be some type of lighting, if people were going down there after dark and things to that effect. The only thing that I do have for you guys tonight, decision wise, is the proposed bylaw changes. This is, I think you have a QR code for that. There's,
Yeah.
It's specific to chapters 9, 10, and 11 of the bylaws, which chapter 9 is the Safety and Security Committee purposes. Chapter 10 is traffic, and chapter 11 is nuisances.
Does anybody excuse me, but I've got a copy here if anybody wants to see it.
It's pretty lengthy.
It's a lot of pages.
This is specific to the project that Pat Hawkins took on when she was leaving the board last year, the year before, I believe, right?
I've lost all track.
It's been a while. I mean, it's been taking some time. So there really isn't subject matter changes in there in any depth. Primarily, it's simplifying some of the language and then removing the assessments from the actual bylaw chapters and those going to an assessment schedule off of chapter 9, 10, and 11. So,
Do we have a motion to, oh, we do, okay. Yes, sir.
Is it up for discussion yet?
We don't actually have a motion to open it for discussion yet, but I'm sorry.
You want to open it up?
Yeah, let's do, we have a motion. Okay. Jeff seconds the motion. So the motion is on the table for discussion.
Only lender lots 441, 442. I'll be honest, this is the first time I've actually had a chance to look at this. I just, I didn't do the QR code thing. I actually waited for the hard copy. Who put these together?
What I did is I met with Johnny Yexer as a liaison to safety and security, was also a big help. And when we got through a first draft, we sent it to Jared for a legal review to make sure that the changes we were proposing were not in conflict with Indiana law. And now it is back for first reading and input from the community.
Okay, just some input. I read contracts every day, probably thousands in my lifetime. And I'm a real stickler for precise language. And I just saw one thing here on the old 11-5-5 prohibition against hunting or discharging a firearm, which is good. But that was being changed to are using any device capable of discharging a projectile. Are we going to ban Nerf guns and model trains and dart guns from kids using them in the valley?
I think it's a good point. Valid. Does that include every type of? I mean, since you read these, what if you would change this language, which can be done, right? So what language would you propose in exchange? Because the issue is, I think, I'm not sure what the intention of the board was, but I'm guessing you're thinking like bow and arrows as well, or other deadly, or anything that BB guns. Is that also, you know? So
there's a whole spectrum.
Well, you got it. We need to define. Do you mean BB guns? Do you mean Nerf guns? Do you mean spitballs? Do you mean table tennis?
Airsoft.
You got it.
Things like this.
So I absolutely agree with that. I think we probably do need to dice that up and maybe make it a little bit more specific.
I haven't looked at the rest of these though.
Please do. Like I said, I would enjoy any comments you have. I agree with you. Detailed language is very important. When I read through this, what I'm looking for is whether it's illegal for the board to do it. You know, however, you guys, I don't like to get involved in your, what rules you like in the community. So what I'm really looking for when I get into these is it illegal in Indiana for us to do it? So of course, it's not illegal for us to have this rule, but like I said, probably should have been caught. We should probably discuss it better. But like I said, if you have any other input on these, I think Pat would be a good thing. Pat will come to me and we can redo it. Or if you don't want to rewrite anything, just say, hey, I got a problem with this. And then we can make a change to that.
I think there could be language that would be better, but this actually is so broad that.
I agree.
Well, as it stands right now, it's basically that broad because what we did was combine two statements into one because the bylaws as it stands now, section 11.5.6 states prohibition against devices capable of discharging a projectile. And we just combined it into one statement to try to make it more concise and that there's not so many line items. So right now, as the bylaws stand, that's already in there written like that.
As has been said before, the bylaws are kind of squishy.
They need to be fine tuned. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And I think in fact, everybody ought to give Pat Hawkins a great round of applause. And got to give George a big. I don't know if George is still here.
He's here.
But writing these bylaws ain't easy. It's easy to comment that they're no good or whatever like that. But actually writing it and then rewriting it and then thinking about all these things, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work at different people. So like I said, I don't think anybody should be kept out of that process. If you see something that you go, I don't understand this rule. One thing we have in Hidden Valley is you have voter efficacy, meaning that you can come to this board and ask for something. You can come talk to me, you can come talk to Pat, and you possibly can make a change onto your bylaws. So, like I said.
And I will say, Pat, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the main points in doing this was just to simplify what's there. There wasn't any effort to change any.
Not really. We weren't inventing new things.
Right.
We were
And so
just
that's
trying to make it
so
easier.
taking what we had and trying to make it a little more concise and straightforward. So
But
I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. I get
Be
it.
careful about how broad you make these things.
Sure.
I think it's the whole wakeboard thing. You have to be careful about how broad you make it. Rules.
Right.
I have Amy 21 for Aaron, 2106, 7. Just an observation that I noticed the other day on 1011-3 and then also your 1011-4 on the people under 18 must wear helmets. Now, I just want to be clear, I am all for helmets. I have a kid, likes motorcycles, but it says under 18 years old, and I believe you can have a motorcycle license at 16. And that is up to your discretion, whether you wear a helmet or not. Is that right, Jason? So that's conflicting with the law. Because it says under 18, authorized motorized bicycle, motor scooter, skateboard. It also says then in the following motorcycle, and then it says have a valid driver's license. So at that, you would be at 16, right? So would it be at their discretion to wear a helmet or not?
Well, I think so. One of the ways it's always been put to me is that we have to abide by Indiana or local law, but we can be more constricted within the confines of Hidden Valley if we chose to be.
So if he's got a motorcycle, right? He doesn't want to wear a helmet any other place, so he's got to wear it in the valley, and then what's he doing?
But again, so if that's in here, then it's in the bylaw as it stands right now,
It's
right?
18. Never mind. Thank you. See? Oh, I didn't do my homework very good, did I? I just thought it was interesting.
Any other comments about this issue? Okay, so, this was the first reading.
Right.
Paul, do you have Pat's, email or? Okay, good. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so if there's none, is there anything else that you had?
That's it.
Okay. Tom?
I would just have one quick comment, Dave. You mentioned in your report that your committee was discussing some additional illumination at the beach. I would ask that perhaps in those discussions, if you might include our parking lot here in front of the POA and Willie's, because we could use some illumination out there too. It's very, very dark. Thank you.
Got it.
Especially when the nights go around there to get and get support of school she lives in there. Both had like trying to get the it's all probably well.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
All right, thank you, Dave. Well, this is the first reading.
Yeah, just with the motion, and we discussed it now, just take the vote, that we approved the first reading.
Oh, okay.
So you made a
Yeah, so
motion.
we do need, so we do need to, are you there, Donna?
Yes, I am.
How do you vote for to make this the first reading?
I can vote yes.
Grant?
Also vote yes.
I'll vote yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain, so it's a board of.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin.
Kevin Gross, along with sport meeting at my job, make everybody like each other again. We have to respect each other's opinions, so I know it gets real emotional, so the events that we had is we just let that all go. Okay, so March 9th is the pub crawl, starts in Willie's, the Possum, One More Bar, and then ends up at Barrelhead's. Fun time, there's a bus there. We'll be selling tickets in the next couple of weeks or so. Next week, I guess. Just a fun, just spot off a little bit. So Easter egg hunt for adults is March 30th. And then spring community yard sale coming up. So that's the events we have. And we have the winter mixer January 26th. I forgot to put that on there, which is really cool. Just appreciation for everybody that supports our events. The only slide I got. Any other questions or comments? Always looking for new members. So.
Thank you.
Do we have any old business to discuss? Any new business to discuss? You know, before we break up, I would just like to say that, you know, I realize that so many people are so very passionate about this issue. And we have had some people contact us that are passionate in different ways than some people. And, you know, I just want to say thank you to everybody for being as congenial as everyone has been. I know it's been a difficult meeting, been a very long meeting. Normally I would go to bed about this time. So sayonara, everybody, meeting adjourned.
Good night, Bob.
Walked up on.